Look at that. BMW's back on jack stands. That must be like a record. It's been what, 3 days? I mean, it has been a really short amount of time, but this time it's not back up there because something broke. It's just up there because something has been broken, and I've been ignoring it, even though I've had the parts sitting on my shelf for like months. Over here on my increasingly overfilled shelves, I really need to get more of these. If some enterprising shelf dealership wants to sponsor the channel, that'd be pretty neat. Maybe help me with... Yeah, anyway, control arms. I got some new lower control arms. If you remember when I had this car inspected, we found a couple of ball joints that were starting to go, and that's a little bit unusual for a ZHP because unlike other 3 Series of this vintage, they don't have a rubber bushing at the bottom. I mean, it's hard to tell. They don't have a rubber bushing around the ball joint. They have a metal sleeve instead, which gives you slightly stiffer, better translation of steering inputs into the car actually doing stuff. It's like poly bushings and other suspension components. And as a result, the rubber is usually the part that fails. In this case, it's actually the ball joint itself because this car has, 240,000 miles on it. So I got 2 TRW ZHP compatible lower front control arms, easy for me to say, form a ZHP. And really this install doesn't look like it'll be too bad. It looks like it's pretty much just 2 bolts and done. And so greasy here. And this will let me figure out, once I get those replaced and get that obvious play in the steering system removed, how is that going to affect my still slightly vague and sloppy steering? If that takes up all of it, that'd be great, but I suspect I'm going to have to replace this steering rack. Fortunately, the steering rack looks like an absolute cinch. Looks like there's 1 bolt here, another bolt over here, right there, the 2 tie rod ends, and then 1 pinch bolt on the steering shaft, and it just comes out the front. It's so easy. I swear this car was actually made by people who intended it to be worked on, which is great because I have been working on it quite a lot actually. And I know I ranted about this already earlier this week, but really it's a very easy car to work on, and BMWs of this vintage just kind of seem to be. I mean, I've been underneath John Ross's M6 that they did the rod bearings in. A lot of steps, yeah, but it seemed pretty reasonable, and it seemed, definitely harder than anything you do on this car. But like compared to other cars of that spec of that category, it didn't seem that bad. Hoovie's 5 Series also, you get underneath it and everything's just, you can point and touch every piece on that car, and even the subframe is out of the way of the bottom of the engine. I think you could probably drop the oil pan on that car without even touching the subframe. I don't know that for a fact. And in fact, I actually found out that the easiest way to do the headers on this car, like I did last week, is to drop the subframe. And I was like, well, that seems like a whole lot of work. But really, if you have a lift, I looked, it's like 4 extra bolts than what I did. It's actually probably easier to drop the subframe, and then you can just reach up and, yep, there's the exhaust manifold. Super simple. It's probably not the most conventional thing, but really, if you know anything about working on cars, and you're used to working on like old other stuff like Fords, or especially Fords. God, Fords from this era are awful to work on. Every bolt is a different size. One component will be held on with like 8 different size fasteners of different lengths, and you've got to figure out where they go. The entire underside of this car can be disassembled with a 13mm wrench pretty much, and an 11. It's pretty fantastic, and actually reminds me of something else. How is a Ducati like a BMW? Well, it's really, really, really easy to work on. Of course, I'm working on it a lot, but man, look at this. Everything's right there, and of course this thing's hacked. Look at it. That doesn't belong there at all. But everything's just there and accessible and easy to do. This isn't engineered near as well as my BMW. This thing is clearly a parts bin special because Ducati was absolutely poor in the 90s. So every bike is just a mishmash of parts. But same sort of thing. It's an exotic, expensive brand. Oh, it's terrible to work on, but it's just really not. You just have to approach it with some level of sense, and that's just bolts. Looks like one of the first things that's going to have to happen is the sway bar needs to come down. I'm just going to wipe it off real quick because, that's gross. I don't want to touch that. Oh, it's just like a greasy, disgusting paste. That is genuinely terrible. My ear.
I don't feel like wrangling the huge Milwaukee under here, so I'm just gonna do this the old-fashioned way. Let's see if I can break that guy loose. Oh, yeah. Oh, done.
If you've been watching for a while, or if you go back in my playlist on this car, you remember that these wheels needed some hubcentric rings, and I had these 3D printed. And if you take a look, those still look, I mean, they're dirty, but they're in dang near perfect shape. Even after being on the car for months. But I did get some actual ones, so let's see if those fit. All right, let's pull that off and stick this on. Yeah, that fits on there pretty good. And there's there's dimensions there, and here's how they compare to each other. Looks like the actual centric ring is just a bit taller. It has a bit more of an aggressive flange, but now we need to make sure it actually fits in the back of the wheel. Let's see here. That is, it'll take some persuasion with a mallet, or just sticking it on the hub first and then clamping this down on it, but I think that'll fit. If not, I will just wheel a little section out of this so that it can grow or shrink as needed. But yeah, I think that's the ticket. All right, so I got that inner nut off. It lived up there. I would definitely recommend a ratcheting wrench for that nonsense. Now we're just gonna get this one here on this outer lower control arm. And if you have a car equipped with auto leveling by Xeons, don't worry about disconnecting anything, because I guarantee you it is already broken. In this case, where's my camera pointing? In this case, this load leveling arm, yeah, that's already completely trashed. So I'm not going to bother unbolting that. I will take this metal piece off and retain it, but that plastic arm needs redone, so whatever. I'll just leave it for now. So now I just got to undo that, and then I can start going to town with the pickle fork and get this dropped down. Remember when I said this was going to be easy? That was 2 days ago. I spent the last 2 days buying things to try and separate these ball joints because I've never had to do this before, so I didn't really have the tools on hand. First thing I did, pickle fork. I got this from O'Reilly's. It's just a standard size pickle fork. They had two sizes, and this was a smaller one. Nothing really special about it. You can see how mushroomed out it is from hitting it. The only hammers that I had were mallets and a little like finished like for nailing, for hammering in little nails and stuff. Neither of those did the trick. Even with a whole bunch of heat from a blowtorch, those did not do the trick. This did do the trick. This is a 4-pound, I think they call it a engineer's hammer. I don't know why it's called that. Maybe because you need this to fix bad engineering, but these two tools got the ball joint separated in like seconds. It took like 5 blows.
So there we have the ball joint broken free, and the control arm is just kind of hanging there. Now I've got to get that inner one off, which means I've got to do this again, but like from a different angle, and I got to try and get between the subframe in there, and it's going to be an interesting feat. We'll see if I can even get a good swing angle at it.
There it is. That is the inner one popped out, and I've just realized why they say to remove the chassis brace there. I thought that the control arm would be able to swing down and pull out of that bushing. Turns out I've got to unbolt the lollipop bushing, and it pretty much, if my camera will show it, it pretty much runs right into that subframe connecting thing. So I'm going to have to pull that off. That's a whole bunch of 17s, I think. And that'll drop down, and I can take off the lollipop bushing, which I think is a couple of 13s, and that'll be the control arm out, and then I just press the lollipop bushing out of there. I think I'll probably use a 3-jaw for that, and we'll be ready for the new control arm to go right in. A control arm. Here is the HID leveling arm. I'm probably going to take that off and save it for when I eventually fix that sensor. These ball joints, yeah, they're not great. I mean, obviously the boots are torn up, but they've got a little bit of a click to them when I wiggle them back and forth. Unfortunately, that bushing is a little bit loosey-goosey as well. It looked fine on visual inspection, but it looks like I'm gonna have to buy new ones of these. So unfortunately, this is not going back together today. I'll go inside and order some parts. I'm not sure if you can hear this, but listen to this ball joint. She dead. These are original factory control arms. I'm assuming they've never been replaced, and that's entirely feasible because these things last forever. They don't have the rubber bushing that goes out, so the only wear is on the ball joint itself. What's this? What a lucky day. My parts got here a day early, so now I don't have to wait until Wednesday to finish this up. It's rather a large bag, actually. Okay. I guess that part just comes off. Why not? Let's see here. Perfect. You might have thought that was stupid, but you can't really argue with the results now, can you? Yeah. Nice. Shiny. And very, very solid, which is a good sign because that means there was definitely something wrong with the old ones. You know, I didn't know if they were supposed to have some wiggle to them or not because they do kind of move and flex and bend a little bit just as they're part of their normal operation. But yeah, no, sweet. That'll be a great improvement. All right, I got my control arm and I got my bushing, and it goes on like this. This has an L here for left side, and this is the left side control arm. It also has an L on it, and it goes this way. Important thing to note, there are like some recessed areas on these bolt holes, and those go towards the car, so that will go like this when it's all in there. I've just got to press this on somehow, and I think the answer is going to be hammer. Well, that is one side done and only minimal blood loss occurred. Here's a couple things that I learned. First of all, use wonderful Dawn dish soap to lubricate the bushing to get it on all the way. That is a pretty critical part. Apparently you want to use something that is water soluble and will go away, not stick around like, WD-40 or something. Will leave just little traces of a slight lubricant on there for a while. And for this boy here, the one that goes through the subframe, definitely going to need to use a Allen key to hold the stud in place. And my gosh, just go ahead and get a ratcheting 22 mil, because that's quite a lot of threads there. And yeah, this part kind of sucks. And there we have it. New control arms on the E46. Just got everything wrapped up. Got the wheels on. Let's get this puppy on the ground. And it is cold enough out here to see my own breath. Okay, first test of the new control arms. The really bumpy road in front of my house. Let's see how it feels over these cracks and stuff. Solid. Actually, I'm not feeling, I used to feel a bit of a jerk through the steering wheel when I went over, like little 1-inch ledges like that. Ah yes, it's 37 degrees and it's a German car. That means it needs to beep at me. Okay, let's see how it feels more at speed here. Left hand shifting. Big bump. Feels good. Ooh. That feels good on center now. Oh man, that is impressive. Let's get, the steering feels so much heavier. Grabbing third with my left hand. All those people are like, I don't want to drive stick because then I can't eat and drive. Psh. Try holding a selfie stick and driving stick. Okay, it doesn't pull as much now either. I think that helped my caster out. Oh yeah, this isn't tracking like it used to. It used to pull super hard uphill. Oh man, I mean, I can take my hand off the steering wheel and shift. Admittedly, there's like no cars out here. This is definitely not advisable, but oh, look at this. Look at it, it just goes straight now. That's amazing. It's such a small thing, but it makes all the difference in how nice this car feels. The whole thing feels like 10 years newer. And the story is more of the same out here on the highway. The car just, it feels so much more solid. There's no more wiggle in the steering wheel. There was a little bit left after I did the steering coupler, and that's why I started chasing this issue down. But it just feels so good. And I hit a couple of little, twisty on-ramp, off-ramp type of stuff when I wasn't holding a camera, and the car felt so much more precise. This is what a 3 Series should feel like. So if your 3 Series feels like the front end's a bit sloppy, lower control arms, the lollipop bushings, and a steering coupler, and you should be set. This thing feels great. That does it for today. It's 10:30 at night. I'm gonna go get some food. Thanks for watching.